The security situation in the Strait of Hormuz has once again moved towards what is being described as the worst-case scenario for oil tankers. The reason is a growing cycle of attacks and counterattacks between Iran and the United States of America. In the past week, Iran has repeatedly targeted ships moving through the key waterway, raising fears over the safety of one of the world's busiest energy routes, where the traffic is now down to a trickle. The U.S. Central Command has said that a tower in the area was reportedly being used by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps to track and to target commercial vessels passing through the strait. The IRGC has claimed that 2 oil tankers struck mines and exploded while crossing the waterway. It also said that it had stopped 4 ships attempting to transit the route. However, marine traffic data now shows that some shipping is still moving. Some 6 vessels passed through the strait in the past 24 hours, and the latest developments have come as tensions between Washington and Tehran have continued to escalate. Now, Iran has declared the Strait of Hormuz to be extremely unsafe and has warned that oil, gas and fertilizer exports will remain blocked until the U.S. military operations end. Tehran is also trying to change as to how ships use the waterway. Iran has now warned the tankers and cargo ships to stay closer to its coastline on the northern side of the strait, while the U.S. has been working to try and keep the southern shipping route open. In response, Washington has now stepped up its military attacks on Iran, carrying out strikes night after night. The CENTCOM has said that the operations are aimed at continuing to weaken Iran's military capabilities. And the Iranian media has reported that explosions across several southern provinces. Strikes have reportedly killed at least 3 people and injured 8 others in Hormuzgan province. In retaliation, Iran has struck a second power and desalination plant in Kuwait within 2 days, forcing several power units to shut down. Now, Iran's military has also claimed that it has hit U.S. targets in Kuwait and Jordan in response to American strikes. In Kuwait, the Iranian forces have targeted an ammunition depot at Camp al-Adiri, along with facilities at Ali al-Salam Air Base, including the storage areas and communication sites. In Jordan, fuel tanks at Al-Azraq Air Base have been bombed. The Bahrain has also said that its air defenses intercepted a wave of Iranian attacks. Iran, meanwhile, has claimed that it targeted a U.S. air base in Bahrain. It said that drones struck aircraft shelters, parking areas, fuel storage tanks at Sheikh Isa Air Base and several connecting bridges. And after Tehran is threatening to escalate further, reports have also said that Iran has asked Yemen's Houthis to stand ready to shut down the Strait of the Red Sea corridor if the U.S. strikes on Iranian power and infrastructure. The Houthis are reported to have completed preparations to attack shipping by deploying missiles and drones near the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, the gateway to the Red Sea. Meanwhile, a top Iranian commander has warned that Iran will resume full-scale offensive operations if the U.S. strikes continue over the coming days. Talking to the state media agency IRIB, Major General Mohsen Razai declared that Iran will no longer limit itself to retaliatory, like-for-like responses, and no political border is going to be safe. And also on the broadcast, to put all of this in perspective, we are joined by Dr. Meir Javedanfar, who's a lecturer of Iranian politics at the Reichman University in the State of Israel. He's a West Asia analyst and also the co-author of Nuclear Sphinx of Tehran. Dr. Javedanfar, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on Beyond. Now, with regards to what has happened in the last 7 days, where every single night there have been attacks by the Americans and the Iranians have responded in what is being described as like-for-like attacks. But in the last 48 hours, there are reports that certain water desalination plants have been targeted in Iran, which has resulted in 10,000 people not having access to water, for which the Iranians have reportedly struck a desalination plant in Kuwait. How dangerous do you think this escalation is, considering the Middle East effectively lives on these water desalination plants?
This is a very dangerous development. Attacking water desalination plants is something that affects the lives of many millions of ordinary people in this region. And this is a target that should be avoided at all costs. I quite honestly don't know why the Americans attacked the desalination plant in Iran, and of course the Iranians doing the same in Kuwait doesn't make it any better. It makes the situation worse. But I have to say we are currently on a trajectory heading towards serious escalation in the current war between the two sides. And the Americans are now increasing significantly the number of aircraft tankers that are being brought to Israel so that they can be used to refuel American planes. These things usually happen prior to a serious escalation in the number of attacks by the Americans against the Islamic Republic of Iran. And the Iranians also, they are going to escalate by attacking Persian Gulf countries and shipping with the hope that these attacks against the Persian Gulf countries especially will bring them to the point where they can no longer bear the costs of such an attack. Then they go to the United States and ask for a ceasefire, and then Iran can use such a situation to get what it wants, which is complete control over the Strait of Hormuz. This is what it's all about. Iran wants to have complete control over the Strait of Hormuz, and this is why it restarted the current round of fighting after a memorandum of understanding was signed between Iran and the US on June 18th.
Right. Now, I think you've very well put forth the picture of the dynamic that is now playing out in this war. But the question that I want to ask you is this. The Iranians insist that they want to have complete sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz and the traffic that moves through it. The Trump administration clearly does not want to let the Iranians have that. How far do you think the Trump administration is now willing to go to ensure that the Iranians can't claim control of the Strait of Hormuz? Because with every day this war progresses, there is key infrastructure that is being destroyed that cannot be rebuilt back in a day or a week. That'll take several years for that infrastructure to be built back. Correct. And how far do you think the Trump administration is now willing to go in this crisis? Because every day things seem to be getting out of hand.
I think the Trump administration is willing to go very far in this, for the simple reason that the Persian Gulf countries are telling President Trump that we cannot economically survive with Iran having complete control over the Strait of Hormuz. Once Iran gets control over the Strait of Hormuz, Iran can have a say over the future of the economies of all of the Persian Gulf countries. Iran can also use its leverage over their economy through the Strait of Hormuz to impact their foreign policy. And the price of that to the Persian Gulf countries is, in the long run, is far higher than the costs that they have to pay now, which, as you quite rightly said, is already high, and it's probably going to climb in the next month or so. But the scenario of the Islamic Republic of Iran having control over the Strait of Hormuz is a nightmare scenario for all of these Persian Gulf countries, including Oman, right, including Qatar, which have better relations with Iran than the other Persian Gulf states. So therefore, America has their backing, and I think they are the ones who convinced President Trump to go back to the fighting after Iran attacked a Qatari tanker on the Omani side of the Strait of Hormuz.
Right. I think you've touched a very key point here. I want you to weigh in very quickly on how much longer can the Gulf nations take this pain of watching their critical infrastructure get destroyed in a war that these Gulf nations will say they have got nothing to do with. In your assessment, how much longer before they lean on Donald Trump and ask him for a ceasefire?
To be honest, that's a difficult question to answer. But what I can say, sir, is that these Persian Gulf countries, each one of them has sovereign wealth funds that go to hundreds of billions and some of them to trillions of dollars. The first country in the world to have a sovereign wealth fund is Kuwait, and they've been putting money aside for many years. So I think they are willing to dig in to their sovereign wealth fund to withstand the pain. because this is not a war they wanted. They didn't want America to attack Iran. They tried to mediate. But once America attacked Iran, Iranians attacked them. The Persian Gulf countries had nothing to do with America's decision to attack Iran. But the Iranians attacked them, and then Iran wants to have control over the Strait of Hormuz. And these countries don't want to live with this scenario. And, in war, much like in politics, you only have two choices, bad or worse. The worst for them is to allow Iran to have control over the Strait of Hormuz. So they have to live with the bad decision of having to live under a costly war for the time being in order to make sure that the nightmare scenario of Iran having control over the Strait of Hormuz does not materialize.
There are no easy choices, as they say, in war, but the dynamic of what is playing out in West Asia appears to have changed pretty dramatically. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Javedanfar, for joining us with that perspective there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.